What's up, everybody, and welcome into the newest episode of Crunch Time. As always, Jacob Krugenberg, Max Williams, my co-host with the most, Max. Man, dude, that was a crazy Super Bowl yesterday.
Oh, it really was, Krug. Both teams were going at it, right? I mean, first of all, the Eagles started fast, right? The Eagles came out. Jalen Hurts was getting everything he kind of wanted, right? He was coming in. In the entire game, he threw for 304 yards, which just is incredible to think about for him. But then Patrick Mahomes in the second half. I mean, granted, he was injured part of that first half, right? He was grimacing in pain from that high ankle sprain. In that second half, the Chiefs had a different game plan, different attitude. And I'm going to give props out to Isaiah Pacheco, too. Isaiah Pacheco, I mean, I'm actually happy that for the Super Bowl, the Chiefs won it, and Pacheco got that chance. Because if you don't know information about Pacheco, a lot of people know being around here. Pacheco started at Rutgers, right? And everyone didn't really know about him as a running back. He came into the Chiefs, tried to see if he was going to fight it out with Hilaire this season. Hilaire got the injury. It was Pacheco's turn, and Pacheco just did what he had to do. Came in, did what he had, and a big-time role for this Chiefs team as he ran for 15 carries for 76 yards. And so that's obviously a huge advantage there for the Chiefs getting the running game going, especially still seeing with Mahomes during the game was still feeling that high ankle sprain as well. So I think that's obviously a big thing, and yeah, props to the Chiefs. What a great game, Kruck.
I mean, you talked about it, Pacheco just doing his job, and I want to touch on that a little bit more in detail. Like, this is a passing offense. You have Travis Kelce where you could have him swarmed with honeybees and he's still going to catch the ball. It doesn't matter. You have Juju Smith-Schuster. You have Valdez-Scantling. You have receivers who are going to catch the ball, right? Even Tony.
Kadarius Toney, yeah.
They're going to catch the ball. So when you need a running game, you don't need an stellar, like Adrian Peterson prime with the Vikings running game, right? You need somebody who can get you an average of 3 to 4 yards per carry, and that's what he does. That's what he excels at doing. He's not going to get the ball every single play, but when he gets the ball, he makes the most of his opportunities. Because, I mean, you're looking at it, he averaged over 3 yards a carry, which is very impressive. Actually, he averaged over 5 yards a carry, which is very impressive.
Really good.
So, looking at a guy who, scouts were saying were too small, who couldn't lift as much or wasn't big enough to do something. I mean, that is an old way of looking at football. Because you look at both sides of this game, Devontae Smith, looking at him, you're like, he is too small. Just looking at him, he's too small. But he makes up for it with his ability, his speed, his catching percentage, and just every other category. So he's like, okay, yeah, he might be small, but it doesn't matter because he gets open. He catches the ball. He's fast enough to score. He's agile enough to make people miss. Isaiah Pacheco, he is not your prototypical running back like Saquon Barkley, like Adrian Peterson used to be, like Derrick Henry, right? He's a smaller, more agile guy, and he's going to be able to bust those runs open with his speed rather than his power. Now, moving into more team stats from yesterday, the Eagles had more total yards. They led the total yard category, 417 total yards to Kansas City's 340 yards. Kansas City won the rushing game, which is actually surprising because everybody was talking about the Chiefs' O-line being inferior to the Eagles' O-line. And then, put it back on its head, the Eagles led the passing game, even though the Chiefs are a passing team. Passes on first down, about even. Rushing the first down, if you watch the game, the Eagles won that one. It was 12-7. And that quarterback sneak is lethal. You can't stop it.
They did a lot yesterday.
There's a play where Chris Jones jumped over the line and wrapped up Jalen Hurts, and he still got 2 yards. I mean, I'm sorry, but that Eagles O-line is unstoppable when it comes to a 1-yard situation. The biggest thing about this game that I thought was kind of crazy was the sack rates. So, coming in, the Eagles' defense led the nation in sacks, and the Chiefs were close behind, right? Well, the Chiefs ended up with 2 sacks, and the Eagles ended up with 0. So, I mean, for everybody talking bad about this Chiefs O-line, they stepped up like no other. I mean, Creed Humphreys had his hands full with Ndamukong Suh, Fletcher Cox, whoever else they wanted to put over him. He didn't give up a sack. I mean, you're talking about a guy with 1-2 years experience not giving up a sack. I mean, that was outrageous. Any other final thoughts?
I mean, I was very curious, like you said. I mean, obviously we talked about it, you mentioned it. The Chiefs had the number one passing offense coming into this game. The Eagles had one of the best defenses going into the pass in this game. And the Eagles, I think, did a good job kind of stopping the top kind of receivers, right? They kind of stopped Valdez-Scantling, which went off against the Bengals in the game, but then Juju Smith-Schuster stepped up. Kadarius Toney stepped up. That's the thing about the Chiefs is you don't know who's going to be that guy. And I think I really like, too, Sky Moore as well. No one talks about Sky Moore that much. I thought he was a great player coming out of college, and he showed up big time getting that touchdown reception in the fourth quarter, which they had 17 points they got in that fourth quarter compared to 7 for the Eagles. That was key in the game, and I think looking at it, it's the big-time players that came into it, right? Jerick McKinnon, we don't talk about it as much. He still played a big role as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so he's another guy that, looking at the league, right, and you mentioned this, this is why I like Pacheco and McKinnon for this offense. Because the league now, as again we've known it, is come to a passing-first league. And these two running backs stepped up big time what they did. And I thought another key to a lot of people didn't talk about, the Eagles' run game besides Jalen Hurts did not come to play at all.
No, it did not.
And that is a huge disadvantage for a team that runs the ball more than they pass. That is their offense forte. Even though Jalen Hurts got 3 touchdown runs and 70 yards, that was their leading rusher, Gainwell only had 21, Sanders 16. Yeah. That's not going to cut it for the Eagles if they wanted to win that game. And so props to the Chiefs, though. And, hey, we're here in Kansas City, so, Kruck, we might have a chance, to go to a parade possibly for this time.
I mean, maybe. And then looking at some firsts from this game, this was the first time 2 African-American quarterbacks started for opposing teams in the Super Bowl. First time a pair of brothers played against each other in the Super Bowl. This was not the first time ever, but the first time in 22 years that the MVP of the regular season was the winner of the Super Bowl as well as the MVP of the Super Bowl. So Patrick Mahomes won MVP and then won the Super Bowl with Super Bowl MVP. Last player to do it, Max, go ahead and take a guess.
Oh, God. Let's say it, Kruck. I probably know when you say it.
The Miracle on Turf. Kurt Warner won MVP and then ended up winning the Super Bowl the next day. And I do believe that he got Super Bowl MVP as well. So, I mean, looking at a bunch of these different firsts for this club or this team, I mean, it's remarkable.
Right.
Remarkable that they lost Tyreek Hill. Everybody was counting him out.
Oh, yeah.
And it, for lack of a better term, didn't make much of a difference. They still went out there, they achieved their game plan, and they got it done.
To me, I think Travis Kelce was always going to be that guy when it was part of their offense. I think Travis Kelce was, if you take Travis Kelce out of the Chiefs' offense right now, I don't think they'd be successful.
No.
I don't think they would be the team that they would be at. And I think, I just got one question before we move on here, Kruck. When we look at the Chiefs now, right? Now they've won a couple of Super Bowls here at this time. We know New England already had a time period. People are starting to see if they want to put the Chiefs in a dynasty talk. Do you see that now happening here with the Chiefs here right now and maybe here for the future?
I see them talking about it with the Chiefs, but you got to remember Travis Kelce's getting up there in age.
Yeah.
He's getting up there in age. Andy Reid's the coach. There's not really a coaching limit age-wise. Patrick Mahomes has been injured for however many years consecutively. And he's continued to play through it, which props to him, but when you're injured, you are injured. Like, I don't care if you can still play on it or not. If you're injured, you're injured. Now I'm going to throw one back at you. There has been allegations and a positive PED test back on Patrick Mahomes. If it comes back as he was doing PEDs and the Philadelphia Eagles are awarded the Super Bowl, do you think that would still be meaningful if you're an Eagle? Do you think it would be like, hey, we won the Super Bowl, or do you think it'd just be like, we won by default?
It depends on how the game went. And I say that because if the game would have went something different, the Chiefs would have just gone and won by 20, then maybe it would feel different. But the game was still close.
Absolutely.
So the thing is, if the game is still close, I don't think it still feels like the Eagles, you know what I'm saying? They had that idea. It's because even though the Chiefs scored, 21 or something in that second half, the Eagles still found a way. Jalen Hurts made plays. So I don't think it made that much of a difference, and it won't be as well. Because granted, listen, we probably know he did have at least something because obviously you know he was feeling that pain, and anybody that knows you're feeling that pain, especially they want to play in the Super Bowl, knows, and the competitive we know Patrick Mahomes is, that he wanted to do that. So, but I don't think it really made that much difference because the game was still, like I mentioned, it's close in reality. Jalen Hurts still played well, and I think that's just what I think, Krupp.
Well, we're not going to get all caught up on the scandals of Patrick Mahomes We could go for hours on that. But we're going to move forward into the World Baseball Classic. So this will be taking place prior to the start of the MLB season, and I think this will actually be a good one, Max. Who's your team to watch out for?
So yeah, Krug, actually I didn't know about much of these stuff until I researched it a little bit for both sides, right? Obviously you look at it, you talk about where baseball is kind of known, right? You still got to look at maybe like Dominican Republic possibly, right? They have a lot of athletes, a lot of players for baseball come there. They're going to probably be some good players to watch on that side. So looking at the Pool C, correct me if I'm wrong here, Krug, USA is in Pool C with Mexico, Colombia, Canada, and Great Britain. That's going to be, and speaking of where Super Bowl was, in Phoenix, Arizona. So, USA, they got some players, obviously, right? MLB has talent overall. You might have to help me out with this a little bit too as well. So I think USA might be a team to watch for. Panama, I'm just, you know what I'm saying? I'm thinking of the teams that have good baseball players where they come from, and they probably will find a way to win in their pools. And this should be interesting, Kruck. Because obviously it looks like it's in a lot of different places, and it'll be a fun one to watch. What do you think, Kruck? Because you're the baseball guy, as I know, so what are your thoughts about this?
Man, looking at the breakdown of Team USA, I am loving it. This is potentially one of the best Team USAs you'll ever see take the field ever. You got catchers, Will Smith from the Dodgers, Kyle Higashioka from the Yankees.
Higashioka, yes.
Higashioka.
We're trying the name.
Trying. And then JT Realmuto. Absolute studs in the backside of that battery. You look at the infielders, Pete Alonso, Tim Anderson, Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, Trey Turner, and Bobby Witt Jr. The only one on there who's truly untested, in my opinion, would be Bobby Witt Jr. from the Royals.
Right.
But in his rookie campaign, he did a great job. You look at the outfielders, Mookie Betts, Jeff McNeil, Cedric Mullins, Kyle Schwarber, Mike Trout, Kyle Tucker. That outfield stacked. I'm taking that outfield over any outfield that you're going to put on a field. I don't care
Mookie Betts and
what
Mike
team
Trout
it is.
on that team. We've already know the bats that Mike Trout brings, right? He's been obviously doing that in the league for a while. Mookie Betts has kind of been the new star of baseball as recently. He's still kept going on doing what he has to do. So, like you said, Krug, this looks like a stacked lineup in the outfield. And obviously, I'll take a look at the pitchers here as we got it posted up here. We got Clayton Kershaw looks on here, Lance Lynn, Adam Ottavio, looks like further for the Mets. Wainwright as another name probably people know about. So, there's some good pitchers here as well. So like you said, Team USA looks like they're going to be stacked on here. As they mentioned, 21 All-Stars, 4 MVPs are on this list. So that tells you already the star lineup for USA. And I think their only challenge, I guess, just looking at Pool C might be, maybe it's Mexico maybe out of the list. Possibly they might be a team to watch out for in this one, in their pool, because looking at all the pool teams here, it looks like obviously there's 5 teams for each pool. Just quickly, I'll mention all quick on them before we go on. In Pool A, it looks like it's going to be Chinese Taipei, Netherlands, Cuba, Italy, and Panama. In Pool B, it will be Japan, Korea, Australia, China, and Czech Republic. Then Pool C, like I mentioned, USA, Mexico, Colombia, Canada, and Great Britain. And then finally, Pool D is Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Dominican Republic, Israel, and Nicaragua. So there's a lot of, good teams that are all in these pools. And I think probably USA is one of them to watch, like I mentioned. Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, that Pool D looks interesting with those teams. Again, Cuba, maybe Netherlands might be something to watch. Who knows? You see European teams maybe not known for baseball with their players, but hey, there's still some great baseball players everywhere you go. And I think you would agree with what I would say. And then probably Australia is a team to watch for Pool B. I think Australia is a team maybe to watch in that pool. What do you think, Krug?
You talked about it for Pool D. I'm very good. I am very highly rating the Dominican Republic baseball team because you have Gary Sanchez and Francisco Mija behind the plate, one from the Royals and Mija, and then Gary Sanchez was on the Twins, still waiting to get signed somewhere else. And then, you look at the rest of the infielders for the Dominican Republic team, you got Willie Adames, Robinson Cano, Rafael Devers, Wander Franco, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Manny Machado, Ketel Marte, Jeremy Pena, Gene Segura, and Nelson Cruz.
Wow. That's stacked too there.
That is stacked. You look at the outfield for this team, they got Teoscar Hernandez from the Mariners, Eloy Jimenez from the White Sox, Julio Rodriguez from the Mariners, and then it wouldn't be complete without Juan Soto.
I mean, Julio Rodriguez just won what, the home run derby, isn't that right? Or was he runner-up in the...
He came in second for the home run derby, but
derby.
was Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, rookie. So, I mean, that's another player to keep an eye on. Juan Soto, we know his talent from the Nationals, now with the Padres now. And so, yeah, I mean, like you said, I think those two teams are obviously the ones to watch, the Dominican Republic and then USA for both squads.
And then you look at the pitchers for the Dominican Republic. Their starting ace pitcher is going to be Sandy Alcantara from the Marlins. And if you haven't watched baseball this year or last year, this is a guy you want to watch. This is a guy you want to set your DVR, sit down your child who wants to become a pitcher, and just be like, watch him, break him down. Looking at the rest of them, they have Diego Castillo. Looking for some other big names through the list. Luis Garcia from the Padres. Cesar Valdez from the Angels, Joel Pamps from the Brewers, Gregory Soto from the Phillies, and I mean, honestly, the rest of this list is just stacked. I'm just looking for the really big ones, so I mean, this is going to be a hard team to beat. So that's my Pool D. Pool C is still the USA. Pool A, honestly, out of Pool A, I'm kind of feeling, I think if you said it right, it was Canada in that one?
Yes. So Pool
A,
Chinese Taipei, Netherlands, Cuba, Italy, and Panama.
So I see it either being Panama or the Netherlands. And then out of Pool B, it's either going to be Korea or Japan. And here's the scary part about Japan. Juan Soto. It was Shohei Ohtani was talking to Mike Trout. Mm-hmm. And Shohei Ohtani said, I am not the best player on the Japanese team. Shohei Ohtani said he was not the best player on that team. And you're just sitting here thinking about it. You're like, what? There's somebody better than you? Yes, that is what he said. Folks, Shohei Ohtani dethroned himself and said, I am not the best player on the team. So that's still a little bit of ways away. What was that? Coming on around March
time, yeah. So right around we got our spring break area time here, Kruck, for here at our school.
Absolutely. Let's move into college hoops. That should be right around the corner for March Madness.
Oh, yeah.
Heading into March and April. Looking at the men's bracket first, Max, out of the men's rankings, who do you think is going to fall or come into that top four to get a number one seed before the bracket starts?
Well, I mean, obviously, just this yesterday, we always talked about the Super Bowl everyone was watching, but Purdue had a huge upset yesterday to Northwestern yesterday. That was why they dropped down to number 3. Looking at it right now, I think if you're looking for number one seeds, Houston's going to be a safe one because Houston's in a conference right now in the American. Their competition hasn't been that great at the moment. Alabama, listen, they're a good team. I mean, there's some other good teams in the SEC, but right now, Alabama's showing they're a basketball school at the moment. Both football and basketball school. They're showing it as well. They got talent for both of them. Brandon Miller for Alabama can shoot the ball. He knows how to shoot it. Kansas is still lingering around. They moved up 4 spots. They're a team to keep an eye on with Jalen Wilson and how they play in the Big 12. You got Virginia still there as well. They're a good team to keep an eye on. I always like how Virginia plays. Their style of play, defensive-minded with Tony Bennett. So those are kind of teams I'm watching. Kruck, what are some teams you kind of looking at for the number one line?
Teams that I am currently looking at is Kansas. I think Kansas is going to bump up and get a 1 spot. I see Purdue losing 1 or 2 more games before this thing starts. Mm-hmm. Northwestern showed their weaknesses. They showed that they are not a fundamentally sound team, but they play high. They play okay. We're happy to be here. We're winning. We're playing on a high streak. All of a sudden, you punch them in the mouth one time, all of a sudden they have to start rebuilding pieces mid-game, and that is not something you want to see. Bama, I do not see Bama being the number 1 seed at the end of the year. I can see Houston taking over at the 1 seed again, like they did at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, we're talking about the number 1 overall. Because sometimes when you talk about number 1 over seeds, they usually the ones they think that's outright get to choose where they can go in the bracket. And so for Houston, keep an eye on them. They might want to try to take the South because that's probably where they want to go down the South. Probably. Maybe the Midwest. So one of those 2 sides. I think another team that I talked about, this was back a couple shows ago, Indiana is a team that is streaking in a direction that's still well. I mean, speaking of, they just beat Purdue as well a couple weeks ago. And they got a great player, Trace Jackson Davis, that I like a lot. And I like how their team is built. So they're at 14 right now. They could be a team that maybe around a 3 seed possibly at the moment. Maybe a 4 seed. But they're a team that can make some noise in the tournament, I think. I mean, another team that I'm looking at, too, is Arizona. Arizona, granted, they did lose to Stanford.
Yep.
But I think they're a team that's going to rebound back. I think Arizona, maybe they didn't have their best game that day, but they got great talent as well. Courtney Ramey, coming from Texas, is on Arizona, and he can shoot the ball there for the Wildcats of Arizona. So there's some teams I'm watching there, Kruck. And for Purdue, just real quick, I mean, you're in the Big Ten. Right now, I would say this for basketball. We talk about SEC for football. For college football, I think Big Ten for college basketball is one of the best conferences that is out there.
Absolutely, hands
down.
down.
Purdue is going to have challenges the rest of the way when they go at it. I mean, you still got teams. Granted, the Big Ten doesn't have a lot of teams right now in the top 25. Look at only actually have 2 teams in the top 25 with Indiana and Purdue, which is a little shocking. But I think still, anytime you play in the Big Ten, whether it's still you're playing Michigan State, which is 16-9 at the moment, Northwestern's lingering there with obviously that upset win. Illinois is still around. So there's still the Big Ten is a conference that is going to be built top to bottom. And so for Purdue, they got to find a way to figure it out right now, because once it gets into regular Big Ten tournament play, they could be an upset alert, maybe in the Big Ten tournament or in the March Madness.
And then there's 2 dark horse teams, if you will, that I'm really looking at. And you can call this a hot take if you want. But I can see Gonzaga making the Elite 8, because right now they would be ranked at a 4 seed in the bracket. I think Gonzaga's going to pull through because their record's 21-5. You look at the rest of these records, they have a better record than Kansas, and Kansas is ranked number 5. They have a better record than Texas, who's at 6, a better record than Virginia, who is at 7. So, I mean, 5, 6, and 7 all have worse records than Gonzaga. I think they're going to be a fun team to watch. Another team to watch is Miami. And I do not like Miami. I have never liked Miami, but they have been playing great basketball as of late. And with a record of 20-5, they have the same record as the Jayhawks, as the Longhorns, and they have a better record than Virginia. So these are 2 teams ranked 13 and 15 with, superior records to the 5, 6, and 7 teams. The difference is that they started winning late and by close margins.
Okay.
These teams up top, they win big and they lose small.
Yeah.
That's the difference in the ranking.
I'd say this about Gonzaga, right? I mean, obviously St. Mary's right now is the team that beat Gonzaga a couple of days ago. So right now we thought Gonzaga is the control of the Western Conference area, Western Athletic Conference, what they're called. St. Mary's is the team I think is another team to watch as well. How they play, they're another team that can shoot the 3 ball. So I think that's another one to watch on that side. But Craig, I'm going to take it just to the women's side here real quick as well. Looking at it, we talked about LSU, right? LSU was a team that we thought was going to lose eventually. They just played South Carolina on Super Bowl Sunday. They lost pretty bad by 20 points to them. And South Carolina took care of business. So, again, we still think UConn's in that conversation. But how South Carolina is starting to play, especially against good teams, we can't just underestimate that. I think South Carolina is a threat for sure.
I think South Carolina is one of the better teams in this women's basketball league. I'm not gonna bandwagon and jump on their ship because I can't. I make fun of people who do it, so I will not do it. I'm still rooting for UConn, who dropped down a couple seeds after a pretty bad loss. But I mean, I still like UConn. Right now they're seeded at a 2 seed. Get a couple more games under their belt, they could move up a little bit. LSU's at the 5, Utah at the 4. Stanford, who I think is your team,
I
is
really
at the
like
3.
Stanford. Yeah, I like Stanford and Cameron Brink, and I like Haley Jones. They did really well a couple years back. But, Krupp, just think about this for a second, right? We talk about women's basketball having, like, kind of some perennial type of teams, right? With South Carolina, Stanford, and UConn. Indiana and Utah are in there, and they're right there in the top 4 spots.
Absolutely.
You don't usually hear Utah doing well in women's basketball. They're there right now. Indiana, they're another team that's right there as well. They're doing pretty well. So it's the same thing. We talk, men's side always has like different changes. We don't know what to expect. Women's side is a little bit more the same. And now we're seeing a difference in tide with some of these teams. And I think that's very cool to watch, especially like a Utah team we don't talk about getting the recognition they want to deserve. Same as Indiana, which has a huge game against Ohio State tonight at Ohio State. So that's a huge game still tonight for both of those teams. If Indiana wants to still be at that one line with South Carolina, Stanford, and I probably might at the moment Utah at the moment for those slots.
And I mean, we talked about dynasties in the Super Bowl talk, if you remember back.
Mm-hmm.
Max, do you still consider UConn a dynasty, or have they fallen too far down the list to be a dynasty? You think the dynasty's over?
I think for UConn, no, I think dynasty is, I wouldn't say it's over, but it's not, I don't think it's at that point.
Okay.
And I say that because if I look at UConn, when I think of dynasty, I need consistency that has been over time. UConn's done that for a period of time. They have got people, they've got teams, but I think now looking at it, there's differences going on in women's basketball that's happening. South Carolina is a team that's developing. Stanford's a team that's developing, kind of building their brand as well for women's basketball. And now we got, like I just mentioned, Indiana, a team out of nowhere, is 23-1. So like that's something to keep an eye on. And when I think of, that's just how I perceive dynasty. Everyone perceives dynasty different ways. I perceive dynasty as you do it for a period of time that's has still the same amount of talent and players on a team. And for UConn, it's changed a lot. Like, they don't got the same players that they thought they had.
Oh, it has, yeah.
Yeah, and they don't have people that have been there. And South Carolina, they haven't been to that area yet, but they still got players that still can beat UConn. Stanford has players that can beat UConn. So, I don't know. I don't call UConn the dynasty as I thought any more than, like, the Chiefs or Patriots, just because of that reason, Kruck.
Absolutely. Before we move on to our fun topic, we threw one in late, so sorry about the late news, Max, but LeBron James just broke Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's all-time scoring record, and it would be ill of us not to talk about it being on a sports podcast. Mm-hmm. So right now, I found some stats that I really liked online, and it basically breaks down Kareem versus LeBron head-to-head. Who do you think is the better player?
Again, I'm going to put this as the different eras that they played in, right? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had a different era where there was way more defense that was happening, right? LeBron James is more an offensive idea. But I still will say, looking at the stats, they're both kind of even, right? Kareem has got more NBA championships, but they both played the same amount, it looks like, seasons. And Kareem has played, looks like, more playoffs than LeBron. But I think, looking at it, I'm going to say still Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And I think it's close because LeBron has been to that kind of atmosphere. He's been through a lot of teams. He's been through a lot of things. And he should be, and I think it's a big-time accomplishment for him getting the scoring record. I really do. I mean, you just don't see that. You know what I'm saying? That's why everyone was happy to come go to the Lakers that game, even though their record needs to show for it in their season. But I say Kareem still because of the ideas and eras that they play. And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was a guy that came in there still wanted to change the atmosphere of the game. And he's a guy that wanted to bring more pressure on for teams. He wanted to bring more as well. And I think that's what Kareem has that LeBron, he motivates players a lot. Probably not to level as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So that's kind of, I guess, what I'm thinking, Kruck. What about you?
I mean, you always hear the controversy between LeBron and Jordan, right?
Yeah.
LeBron and Jordan, Jordan and LeBron, who's better, who's the GOAT, yada, yada, yada. I do not for a second believe that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the GOAT. I'm sorry, I don't. But looking at his stats, he's got 6 rings, which is 2 more than LeBron. He's played the same amount of seasons. He's been in 3 more playoffs, meaning that he has either been on a better team or has willed his team to the playoffs. They both have the same amount of All-Star games, but after a certain point, you just need a name to get in the All-Star
games. And again,
games.
just when we talk about All-Star games, right? The All-Star games have changed a lot of how they played. And so
absolutely.
That's kind of a reason why now every time we hear of All-Star games, LeBron's going to be in there just because that's who LeBron is. Now, granted, does sometimes everyone deserve to be in an All-Star game? Well, that's a debate for another time. But, I think that's another difference, too, is the All-Star game has changed a lot as well in the period of time.
And then you look at the rest of their honors. Season MVPs, Kareem has 6 MVPs. LeBron has 4 MVPs. LeBron has 4 Finals MVPs to Kareem's 2 Finals MVPs. LeBron has been first team All-NBA 13 times to Kareem's 10 times. All-NBA total selections, whether it's first team, second team, third team, or defense, you're looking at it, Kareem's got 15, LeBron's got 18. So LeBron has gotten more accolades, if you will, by all stretch of the imagination. They've both been first team defense 5 times apiece. all defensive teams, first team, second team, and third team, Kareem's been on that 11 times. LeBron's been on it 6 times, which means if he doesn't get first team, there's only one other time that he got a team. The scoring leader for a single season, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar did it twice. LeBron did it once. Looking at the rebound leaders, Kareem did it one season. LeBron has never done it. Assist leaders, Kareem's a center. He's never done it. LeBron plays 1 through 4, so he's done it before. Block leaders, and this is where the asterisk is, because they did not start recording blocks and steals until the 1973-74 season, which means that was 4 seasons after Kareem started playing. So, block leaders, Kareem's done it 4 times. Probably would be more like 5 or 6 if you go back and take those stats. And then rookie of the year, they were both rookies of the year. And honestly, just looking at it, breaking it down, LeBron's longevity is something that you cannot argue, right? It's one of those things where you can't argue it because of how good he is. He's not one of the people where, oh, well, yada, 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 he's not that good, he's not this, he's not that. Well, it doesn't matter. He is good. That is point blank how it's going to be. Now you want to break down Michael Jordan versus LeBron? Honestly, I don't see a good comparison there because Michael Jordan retired after his father died because his father wanted him to play baseball. And people will say it was a suspension. It was not. It was not. Then he retired again when he was going through a divorce. He retired because he was going through a divorce. The Jerry Krause, the GM of the Bulls, said, Phil Knight, you're out. Or pardon me, not Phil Knight. Phil Jackson. He said, you're out. You're gone. You are now too popular, and you're taking away credit from me. You're gone. Scottie Pippen, gone. Steve Kerr, gone. Rodman, gone.
Yeah.
And Jordan's like, you're gutting the team, and you expect me to still win? And Jerry Krause is like, well, I got you on contract for X amount more years. He's like, no, I'm done.
Right.
I'm retiring. Then he came back and played for the Wizards, but, I really don't consider those playing. The actual reason why, do you know, Max? Why he came back for the Wizards?
I thought he just came back because he wanted to keep playing. Is there actually a real reason why?
He became a partial owner of the Wizards, and the team was going down. So he said, I'm going to play to just get people in the seats. Wow. So he started playing just so people would show up. And then, honestly, Jordan didn't have the most points. All right, he is 6,000 points behind LeBron. Well, he also sat out for how many years? Mm-hmm. Sat out for
Imagine
what,
if
5
he would have
seasons?
kept being at that time. We can keep going on with this debate, Kruck, but I think I always compare it to where it was with the eras, right?
Absolutely.
If you look back at the eras of what it was, and obviously you mentioned Michael's injury history and other stuff history that he had stepping from the game, but if LeBron would have played in Michael Jordan's era, do you think he would have been successful?
I think that LeBron is one of those players who, no matter what period it is, he would find success.
Okay.
Would his game be the same? No. But he would find success. Just like if Jordan played right now.
I think Jordan played right now, he would.
He would find success.
Yeah, he would. Because I think, obviously, the NBA has turned into that type of offensive style of league.
Yeah.
When I look at LeBron, I think he's good, right? He can score the basketball. But, when you look at the style of play that they did, there was more physicality at the time.
Oh, absolutely.
I've said this on everything. I don't know how much LeBron is physical. He's got a big body, right? He's in shape. He's good. He's everything. But I don't see it on the court all the time. And that's just something I will say about LeBron. And listen, if people want to get at me because of that, I just think that's what I see. And if he has a way that he can keep getting better, and listen, he's going to have the scoring record now, and he's going to go down as one of the greats. I always look at a player as a two-way player. You got to be a two-way player in my mind. You got to be able to play offense and defense. And if you play both sides of the ball, granted, Michael Jordan didn't have probably the best defense as well either, but you get.
He did though.
But you see, he had it for a period of time.
Yeah.
But I think that also has to attest to where he was with the team.
Oh yeah.
And where he was with everything else. So that's where I'm taking it from. That's why I still always will say Jordan more than LeBron because of the eras for both sides and the comparison. That's just how I always slice it down the middle there, Crow.
And then just a little tangent, not taking up too much time. We talk about transcendent players who can, go from one era to another era, like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Do you think he could play in today's day and age the same way that LeBron could go back to the 70s and play? Who do you think would have a better time playing that game?
I mean, I don't know. That one's a little bit more different to me. I think both of them could actually succeed in both areas they go. I think if you look at it, I think Kareem will still be a scorer that he is, and LeBron's still going to be the same way. I think it's just around the time when Jordan was, right? It was more, you got Bird around that time. You had Magic around that time. You had others around that time.
Isaiah Thomas.
Isaiah Thomas was in that time. I mean, we all know about the Detroit Pistons, how their team was built. So, I mean, that's kind of what the NBA, I think, was at its prime.
Yes.
And I still think the NBA is still getting a lot of people, but I think what they're losing is that people also want to see games that are on a different spectrum. Because now you see NBA games now, they're over here, and I think Kareem would do well in this because its scoring is still good. There's up there being like 149 to 135. Their scores being 102 to 117. So, I mean, those are high-scoring games.
Absolutely.
And you see it it's funny is that in college basketball, we always compare it this way as well. College basketball is not like that. It's more defense. You got a more strategy. You got more this. And NBA, it's more like, hey, I'm going out there playing like regular kind of basketball. Not playing it's like street ball, but it kind of does remind some part of street ball nowadays.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm not saying that's something wrong with the NBA. I'm just saying if the NBA has that idea of if Kareem would have been successful, I think he would because the style of game now is more offensively based. And the same way for LeBron, I think back in the day, there still was scores, not as many, and not as many that you would have known of. But I think he would have found a way to make a name for himself because he is LeBron James.
All right, well, some of you may agree with us, some of you may not. We're going to head to something that you guys will probably not agree with because this actually is our opinion section of it.
Yeah.
We decided to do best Disney cartoons and our favorite Disney animation. So, Max, what's your favorite Disney cartoon?
Cartoon, listen, there's a lot of them, but I would probably say, looking at cartoons, so I liked Aladdin. Aladdin was good. I think Aladdin always liked, with Jasmine and everything else. Let's see, another one that I liked as well, The Lion King.
Oh, yeah.
I always liked The Lion
sure.
King. The Lion King was always a fun one. I always liked singing the songs when I was a little kid. So I think The Lion King and Aladdin for me are my top two, Kruck. What about you?
I'm going to have to go with Aladdin at number one because I think Robin Williams was the best genie ever. No disrespect to Will Smith. I thought he did a great job, but Robin Williams was just far and beyond superior. My second favorite is going to be The Little Mermaid. That was my mom's favorite movie growing up. I like it. The grim tale of it is very disturbing, and I would not recommend looking that up. But the plot behind it did have some holes to it if you sit down and actually analyze it, because it is a woman completely changing herself to get a man's approval, which in today's day and age, that's cancel culture prime right there. But if you just watch the movie, just to watch the movie, it is a great movie. For sure, it's a great movie. And Under the Sea, it's a great song. Like top 5 all-time Disney songs. Now, my favorite my favorite animation for Disney, I'm going to have to give it to Wreck-It Ralph. I think Wreck-It Ralph is my personal favorite.
Yeah.
Number one, undisputed.
Yeah, Wreck-It Ralph that's a good one. I always had a thing for Hercules as well.
Oh, yeah.
I always had a thing for Hercules. I always liked that, the idea of Greek mythology. I was, for curiosity, always liked to read about Greek mythology and how everything was, and kind of seeing the idea with Zeus and all those kind of characters come into play was also very cool. Peter Pan, I always liked Peter Pan as well.
For sure.
I always loved Peter Pan, the story of those. So Peter Pan was probably one of my favorites because I always liked seeing the fun little character thing going on into Neverland, and obviously seeing Captain Hook, and getting eaten up by the alligator and all that kind of stuff. So crocodile, sorry, not alligator.
Oh, you're good.
Crocodile,
You're good.
Yeah, we got to be efficient when we say this now.
You got to be.
Crocodile. So, I always liked Peter Pan as well as one of my favorite animations, Croc. So.
All right, well, we held you about 10 minutes after what we were trying to do. We're trying to go for 30-minute episodes. We went for 40 minutes. This is Mad Max, Jacob Krugenberg. reminding you, if you have a pet, let them outside, let them take a walk. It's starting to get a little bit nicer out. Let them get some vitamin D, Till next time, this is Crunch Time. Thank you all for listening, and I forgot to give a shout-out to the other person on the Davo and Killian show. Killian, if you're listening to this or watching this, we appreciate you. Thank you all, and we'll see you guys next week.